Hey, thanks for checking out my video. Today we are going to do a 10-minute book brief on an awesome book called The War of Art, Break Through the Blocks and Win Your Inner Creative Battles, written by Steven Pressfield. I'm Tom Neiman. I'm a Pennsylvania-based painter, and this book has been extraordinarily helpful to me. In this book, we cover quite a broad field of information, and it really can be motivating and helpful. The big ideas presented in this book are related to the fact that we all have tremendous creative energy that we can tap into if we learn to avoid the pitfalls associated with our own personal egos. By successfully doing so, we can be productive and happy while making the most of our time on Earth. The author's precision and brevity make this a very quick read, this entire book, but particularly this chapter. And the prose is quite poetic and aesthetically pleasing to read as well. And perhaps maybe the most well-known aspect of this book are his thoughts on resistance. This is how he defines the enemy to all creative folks. The structure of the book is pretty straightforward. Steven Pressfield covers what he does, what he knows. He talks about the unlived life that we all have. And then the rest is divided into three. Book 1, defining the enemy. That's resistance. Book 2, combating resistance. And book 3, beyond resistance. Each section is chock-filled with interesting insights. Now, there are a ton of favorite quotes that I can mention, one of which is, sometimes we balk at embarking on an enterprise because we're afraid of being alone. We feel comfortable within the tribe around us. It makes us nervous going off into the woods on our own. Here's the trick. We're never alone. As soon as we step outside the campfire glow, our muse lights on our shoulder like a butterfly. The act of courage calls forth infallibility, the deeper part of ourselves that supports and sustains us. Another favorite quote from within the book, and there's just so many, we wouldn't be able to fit it within a 10-minute review. The artist must work territorially. He must do his work for its own sake. Some really interesting insights surrounding this particular quote for sure. The best and only thing that one artist can do for another is to serve as an example and inspiration. And I like to think that Pressfield takes this to heart with his writings. Little known fact, a lot of folks who are aware of this book might not be aware of the fact that he is also the author of The Legend of Bagger Vance. Quite an interesting artist. Another favorite quote, rule of thumb. The more important a call to action is our soul's evolution, the more resistance we will feel pushing towards pursuing it. And the last favorite quote that I'm going to reference has to do with really the star of the book, and that's this whole concept of resistance. And he says, resistance has no strength of its own. Every ounce of juice it possesses comes from us. We feed it with power from our fear of it. Master that fear, and we can conquer resistance, which is really the name of the game. If we had to boil down this book to one big idea, one concept, one thesis, it would be that in order to fulfill our potential, in order to make the most of our time on this earth, we need to get comfortable living with this whole idea of resistance, which is our ego or fear-based tendency to put off, delay, and procrastinate our most important creative endeavors. And throughout the book, Pressfield gives some really good ideas about how to manage that whole dynamic. So I encourage you to read this. It's a fantastic book. And I credit this book really for a pretty big jump in my own personal creative output over the past year or so. So very grateful for Steven Pressfield for putting this out there. Very grateful for all the folks that I've listened to interview Steven Pressfield. That's another thing I would encourage you to do. He's pretty captivating, pretty interesting dude. And I would encourage you to look for interviews on some of your favorite podcasts with Steven Pressfield. So there's a couple ways if you're interested to get in touch with me. One would be through email at tmichaelneimanart@gmail.com. On my website, thomasmichaelneiman.com. I'm on social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, so on and so forth. If you'd like to support my work, you can visit me on Patreon, and I would really appreciate that. Just for $1 a month, you can get access to some exclusive content. And if you're not in the mood to do that, that's fine too. But if you found this at all interesting, if you read the book and you enjoy it and get any value from it as a result of listening to this review, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing my content. I'd really appreciate that. Well, stay well. Thanks for listening. Have a fantastic day.